Hello and welcome to our second episode of Bullpen Sessions, where we talk about relevant baseball topics, current, past. It doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all. We got off to a great start with Chris from NYMLB Talk in episode 1, talking about gambling and the history connected to baseball. And for episode 2, I've got another fantastic content creator. Lorenzo is jumping on from Big League Takes to talk to us about the current state of offense in the game today and where it's come from and where it's going. And is there anything we could do about it? And we do anything about it? I guess that's the overall picture. And so, Lorenzo, thanks for jumping on with us, man, for episode 2 of Bullpen Sessions.
Hey, love to be here, man. You always got great content. I'm just happy to be part of it.
Yeah, you and I are part of a fantastic show on Wednesday nights. Clearing the bases, and certainly we'll promo that during this episode. Just a great, baseball content creator, podcaster get together where we all talk about the game, and that's coming up tomorrow night live on X. So please join us at 9 Eastern on X. You can catch that on my page on X, Bullpen Sessions. You can catch on NYMLB Talk. Chris and Rob, who do a great job talking all things Yankees and Mets and baseball in general. And Lorenzo, do you stream that live to your page as well?
I do as well on Big League Takes.
Excellent. So you can follow Lorenzo at Big League Takes on X and also catch Clearing the Bases on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. And tomorrow night we got a lot to talk about after the trade deadline and everything that happened, the Dodgers and the current state of the game, and so much content. I'm sure we'll have a good time tomorrow night talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight, you and I are just going to have a discussion about the state of offense in the game and, where we're at. Obviously, I mean, this is not new. We've been in this place for a while now as far as less contact, more power, more strikeouts, more emphasis on things like, trajectory and what am I looking for? I'm looking for the term, the
launch angle, exit velocity.
Thank you, exit velocity. So very different game than what I grew up with. Obviously, you're considerably younger than I, but I probably remember some more heavy contact times. And we'll throw some stats up here during this episode. But just to get us kicked off, Lorenzo, your general thoughts on where offense is in Major League Baseball right now as compared to the past, and do you think we need to do some things to tweak the game to make it more contact friendly?
From a viewer standpoint, offense isn't good, right? We're seeing these games where people are striking out, teams are striking out anywhere from 14 to 20 times a game. From a viewer, that's not the baseball that needs to catch people in.
Yeah.
But to see what these guys can do, and like they try to get off their ace swing. This is like my ace swing's better than any other swing I could get off. To see them do the things that they could do and hit these 450-foot bombs, yes, that's really exciting. But I do want the game to shift back to let's make some hitters, right? I don't need a team full of Kyle Schwarbers all trying to go deep on every pitch. Let's get hitters throughout these lineups, like some of the old days, how those lineups were built to make a team, right? Everybody help each other out. There's 9 guys on the field for a reason. I do think there's some things we could do. There's just so many things that you just don't want to mess with a great game of baseball, though, right? Like the game is going to adapt in these ebbs and flows throughout history. Like even in your time, I say your time, Jason, as if I'm saying you're much older than I am.
That's all right. It's okay.
But you've seen the game evolve from there was a time where pitching was really dominant to the 90s where hitting came alive again, and then the 2000s continued, and then we came into this 3 true outcomes that we're seeing here today. But you got some stats you want to throw up there, man. Let me see some of these stats you're working with that you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And, you say, you talk about kind of when I grew up watching the game, one thing about, and you mentioned also not wanting to do too much to the game, right? So baseball is great because it's hard. Baseball is a challenging game. It's challenging to hit a pitch. It's challenging to throw a pitch that doesn't get hit, right? It's the perfect balance of, both sides are trying to outdo the other one. It's a one-on-one game, really, when it comes down to a pitcher versus batter. That's the one thing I don't want to lose. I don't want to artificially create offense just for the sake of creating offense and ruin that part of the game that makes it great. I don't want to inflate stats because one of the great things about baseball is the stats, and we like to compare stats, even if it's not fair. We know that comparing Babe Ruth to Hank Aaron to Barry Bonds is very unfair because they all played in different eras with different pitches and pitchers. But the gist of the game, the heart of the game is batter versus pitcher, and I don't want to mess with that to the point where it becomes just video game style, right? So I think you brought up a great point there. So to your point, I've got a couple of stats here, and I'll throw these up. So these are the current 300 hitters in Major League Baseball right now, as of August the 4th, 2026. Six.
My
Six.
initial take when looking at these six, how many of these guys are household names?
Well, yeah,
Right,
I mean, that's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point.
For the casual baseball fan, can they tell me where Otto Lopez plays? Where Nick Gonzalez plays?
I think there's one
we're
name on
baseball
here.
fanatics.
I mean, even Yordan Alvarez, Lorenzo, I'm not sure the
Yeah.
average baseball fan would really recognize that name. I think Freddie Freeman's the only name on here that might jump out to somebody who just casually follows the game.
Yeah. Because it's just not that aura that it used to be, right? As you're going to pull up probably the next slide that has like 30 guys from 20 years ago that hit 300. Yeah.
How did you know? This is a little small, but yeah, this is 1986, a full season of 300 batters. So you got, I think there's one you can't see on the screen. So 23 batters at 300 or better. So you're talking about 40 years ago, which I'm just saying that absolutely scares me. I was 10 years old at this point, but and then you look at these names. I think you just made an excellent point. Look at these names and tell me that people, even if you didn't grow up in this time, there's probably a considerable number of names on this list you do recognize, right?
Yeah. Like I think my mom, who's not a baseball fan, could tell you where Kirby Puckett played, where Robin Yount played.
Yeah, Tony
where
Gwynn.
George Brett played.
Yeah, absolutely. Even guys that aren't Hall of Fame guys like Don Mattingly and Steve Sachs, names that Pat Tabler, that most baseball fans from that era would recognize. Very different game than it was then. And then I got one more here. You had 38 players in 1986 that finished the season with 100 strikeouts or more. Like that was a full. Now, granted, there were 4 less teams. I want to be fair, but still a full season with 38 players at 100 more strikeouts. This season, we are in early August the 4th. 50 players are already at 100 or more, and about 23 are within 10 of being at 100, and we still got 2 months left in the season. So, obviously very different, velocity, which is something I kind of want to, we can definitely touch on it here. I think it's good for a future discussion. I don't want to make promises we can't keep. We're trying to get a former major leaguer that would be a huge name who was a pitcher to come on, and he has had some strong takes and opinions on velocity in the game, and I'd love to get him on, and we're trying to do that. So we can touch on velocity, but I also think that almost deserves its own episode because it is a huge part of this discussion. And that plays into this, but just the mentality, Lorenzo, of the launch angle and the exit velocity. Is that, or has that been a good thing for baseball? Because I do think it attracts a certain casual fan that likes to see the long, chicks dig the long ball, right?
Chicks long ball, yeah.
The whole commercial there. So while you and I definitely, I think we agree, and most of our colleagues on clearing the bases would probably agree, we want to see more contact-oriented hitting. If baseball is trying to grow, is it bad that launch angle and home runs, and is it necessarily a bad thing to attract that younger viewership?
I think it's bad if the whole team is like that, right? If you're trying to get 1 through 9 and that's what you built is that, then yes. But it's because it's fun to see the Otto Lopez of the world, the Luis Arraez of the world, the Xavier Edwards of the world get on base, right? Because we, as fans all growing up, yes, we had these teams. I'm a Yankee fan, right? So everybody that I've known always had the number 2 hanging up in their room, right? The Yankee pennant, Derek Jeter. But for me, it was Brett Gardner. That was like my favorite because we have these fan favorites of these guys that are just dogs. Right. And the guys that go out there and just hit bombs, those are great guys, but they're not out there hustling every play. They're not out there getting dirty every play. You want those Brett Gardners. You want those who's your guy on the Braves that you just absolutely adored and loved?
Oh, I mean, guys like Mark Lemke and, that, made contact, but they hustled. They made the tough plays. They got that. Terry Pendleton comes to mind. Pendleton, not necessarily a power guy, but an average guy. He could hit for power when he needed to, but an average guy, leader. Yeah, certainly that's the type of guy. My favorite non-Braves player of all time is Tony Gwynn. one of the great hitters ever, right? And it's funny because I've had this discussion. I think we've talked about it on Clearing the Bases at times, but the value of a guy like Luis Arraez now, who just got traded to the Phillies, right? So
great move. Great move.
I thought it was a great move for the Phillies as well. I mean, put him on base. We just played them not too long ago, and he tortures you because he just gets on base. He just gets these singles, and you're like, God, he's on base again. The problem was that he was on a team that nobody would get him home. He's batting now in front of Harper and Schwarber and those guys that can maybe turn a solo shot into a 2-run homer because Arraez is on base. Mm-hmm. But we also talked about, is his value what it would have been if he had played in the 90s? I mean, Tony Gwynn is considered one of the great hitters of all time, and he would still have a place in today's game, Lorenzo. But would he be what he was in the 80s and 90s?
I think he'd be looked at like a Luis Arraez, right? Maybe a little bit more than that. But Luis Arraez is fighting for 1-year contracts every offseason. He's trying to prove his worth. And like I was looking, because we were talking about this, I looked at this earlier. Kyle Schwarber on a B-WAR average gets less B-WAR a year than Luis Arraez in his career per season. For 162, Luis Arraez generates more B-WAR than Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah,
but it's an $18 million a year average salary difference between a Kyle Schwarber and Luis Arraez, because these teams are fighting for those long balls, right? They're saying, hey, I can't string together 3-4 hits like I could hopefully do with Tony Gwynn with the Luis Arraez of the world. I got to rely on that one big home run and see what happens there. And yeah, like it's exciting, but we want action all the way around. That's what our fans want. That's what people at the game want. Like it's really cool and fun to cheer for the strikeout, but when you go 3 up, 3 down, and it's the pitch, and you just say the pitching was that great, it kind of defeats having fun. Like especially when if you're a young man taking a girl out on a date to the ball game, and she's like, "Why everybody strikes out the whole time?" Yeah, they just strike out the whole time.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things that I've always loved about baseball, because one of my other favorite non-Braves was Ozzie Smith. I love some good defense.
Yeah,
yes. I like a human vacuum cleaner out there that'll make the plays. And one of my favorite Braves of all time is Andrelton Simmons. I mean, you talk about a guy that could just scoop it up. And, he wasn't a strong hitter, but that guy could play some shortstop. And those are the kind of guys that don't get a lot of action if 5 out of 6 players are striking out, right? So to your point, the girlfriend that you take to the game never gets to see Ozzie Smith make an amazing play because the ball never gets hit out the way. And the defense is devalued a little bit because of that, right? Because you got a guy like Mizurowski, throwing 103 miles per hour. Nobody's ever going to hit it out there. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I would rather go to a game or watch a game on TV with, gap doubles, hit to the gap, down the line, opposite field, into the corner, doubles and triples. I'd much rather see a game full of those than a couple of home runs and 15 strikeouts. I just wonder, is that the same mentality that somebody, say, 25 years and younger, if they went to a game and they didn't see a single home run, but they saw a 7-5 type game with, several gap doubles and those down the line hits, would they be as entertained, or would they be like, man, nobody hit a home run? I don't know what the mentality is there. I have a son who's about 26, but I raised him to appreciate contact baseball, and so he likes that kind of baseball. But if you weren't kind of raised on that, do you watch baseball now as a young person and just wait for the big home run and you're okay with the strikeouts? I really don't know.
Yeah, well, to your point of, are they okay with it? A few years ago, right, we have Aaron Judge chasing 60 in that season. Every channel everywhere cut to Aaron Judge chasing 60. He was striking out a lot during that time.
Yeah,
and every fan was still glued to the TV because I want to see him. I want to see him hit 60. They were fine seeing him go down on Ks as long as they had that option to see that 60th home run.
Yeah, and something that I've seen recently from a former major leaguer is the thing that bothered him. And this is the same gentleman who we're trying to get on the show. The thing that he said bothers him the most about batters these days is, one of the things is, they're not ashamed to strike out. Used to, striking out was a big deal. Even in Little League, and I don't know if you played Little League. I played some Little League, and I was terrible. But the one cardinal sin of Little League and kind of up through the ranks as I watched baseball was, don't get caught looking. Go down swinging, right? And one thing to this day that drives me crazy watching the modern game is these guys that will take strike three down the middle. It's just, I just, and the other thing that drives me crazy is when they get two strikes, we were always taught, hey, choke up on the bat, make contact. And this was something that, Tony Gwynn was really good at. And a lot of other, but Wade Boggs, George Brett, those kind of hitters, choke up on the bat, make contact, put the ball in play, and some good things might happen. Nowadays, they're swinging just as hard on a 0-2 pitch as were on that first pitch, and it drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah, they're taught to just get their A swing off every single time now. And like when you do see those two-strike approach hitters, it's just such a rarity that the broadcast just fanboys over them because it's like, oh my goodness, yes, give me this baseball bat. Like Cody Bellinger on the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo, if you remember him on the Cubs, every time with two strikes, you could see him actually choke up on that bat an inch and a half. And every time we zoomed in on him broadcast, Anthony Rizzo, that's a ball player. And it's like, we should be seeing more of this. Now, don't get me wrong. The guys that can get your A swing off every time, it's worthwhile, like an Aaron Judge. Yeah, go get that A swing off every time. But those guys that aren't in that tier, we do need to see these guys have the two-strike approach, right? Drive that ball opposite field, have productive outs. That's what also I think we don't see nowadays. You don't see the productive out as much as you used to. Yeah. Something that the Yankees book, the Yankee way, they talk about in the early 2000s, they would have a leaderboard in the clubhouse of productive outs.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul O'Neill just put up 2 productive outs today, guys. Put it on the board. And that's meaningful. That's what the difference is. You're okay striking out because you don't understand how valuable that productive out is. Move that runner over, do a job here, and let's see something happening.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I know we talk about baseball so much. Is there something that is on your tip of your tongue or back of your brain that you want to see different that could possibly make us see more contact in baseball, or what you got over there?
I think it's very difficult because going back to the original point you were making, and we talked about at the beginning, you don't want to change the fundamental nature of the game because that is the one consistent, whether you played baseball in 1904 or you played baseball in 2026, the one consistent thing about the game that I think we all love is the heart of the game is the batter versus the pitcher. The pitcher's trying to fool the batter's trying to get the hit off the pitcher, and you don't want to mess with that to the point that you ruin that fundamental part of the game. So I think it's very difficult and it's a very delicate balance. I've heard people talk about limiting the velocity a pitcher, like they can only max throw, they can only throw. How do you do that though? How do you realistically, and I think the changes are going to come. They're going to have to come almost at a natural, organic kind of level where the same thing that happened with velocity and launch angle and things of that nature are kind of coming along without people. It wasn't something I think that consciously happened. It just kind of happened along with the evolution of the game. I think it's going to have to go in reverse kind of the same way. It's got to start in Little League. It's got to start with travel ball. It's got to move its way up through high school and college and the minors. Because right now, if you're a young guy and you're a pitcher, what's the one thing that can guarantee you big money and a chance at least? And maybe you don't even make it to the big leagues. You get a $2 million signing bonus and be set for life. It's velocity.
It's velocity every time. Mm-hmm.
How many of these guys do we see that make it to the big leagues and they can throw 98 miles per hour consistently, but they have no idea where that ball is going? they have no command. But because they could throw 98, they got a big league contract and they got a shot. And until that changes, I don't know. And same thing with hitters. I'll use an example as a Braves fan that if any Braves fans are listening will understand completely, and that's Austin Riley. Austin Riley has been conditioned to try to hit the ball deep and try to pull the ball. And when he tries to pull balls that are a foot outside, it's not going to work out really well, right? And he just can't adjust to that. Yeah, sure, every now and then he'll take one the other way. But, you look at one of those spray charts for him, and I guarantee you it's going to be mostly all to left field, right? They can't adjust because that's how they were taught the game. That's how they were conditioned. And so if you don't change that at a fundamental level when they're young, I don't think you can change it in the major leagues, no matter what rule changes you put in place.
Yeah, I think you're a hitter right on the nose. You got to start young. The issue is, as a hitter, we're just getting what the pitcher gives us. And I don't see pitching developing going any other which way besides saying we're going at high exit velocity, max exit velocity as much as possible. Like I used to coach youth baseball, travel baseball for a while. I have I was coaching against other teams that were 11U teams that they had 4 or 5 kids that were POs at 11. And I'm like, you can't do that at 11 years old. This is a kid that wants to play ball, man. Like you had I love the clip a few years ago, the LSU pitcher that hit the walk-off home run, and he told the coach in the dugout, coach like, well, can you swing? He's like, coach, I used to hit bombs in high school. Hits the home run in the press conference after. He's like, yeah, he told me he was a hitter in high school. He goes, coach, I hate to break to you, I was a PO all through high school. He's like, I wanted to hit. My coach never let me.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, for sure.
But like that's our kids are now if my pitcher's giving me that, and that's who I'm facing, are these kids that are just specialized at 11 years old, throwing max velocity at every chance they get, maybe not even going deep anymore. As a hitter, I'm trying to. If you're throwing your A pitch, the only thing I got left is trying to get my A swing off, which is really difficult. And but yeah, for your guy that used to hit all pull side, Joey Bats is also another good one that only pull side home runs.
Yeah,
he was great with that.
And I loved, going back to Tony Gwynn, a guy like that who would just take the pitch where it was. I mean, if you throw him one low and outside, he's going to dunk it into left field. You just put it where the pitch went to, and now it's like you're trying to pull it or you're trying, it's maddening to watch as an older fan, but I keep making that point, Lorenzo. I mean, and I know you're not, you're not young, but compared to me, you are. But that younger generation that Major League Baseball is trying to capture. So, we talk about rule changes. Let's talk about the rule changes they put in place in the last few years. The bigger bases and the limited throwovers to first were supposed to create more stolen bases and more offense.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's really working out. If you look at the stolen base numbers, it may be slightly more. I know the first year it was considerably more, but catchers have adjusted. I think pitchers have adjusted. So you got catchers throwing over there more often. I don't think it's having the offensive effect that Major League Baseball intended for it to have.
Yeah, it's the first year. Absolutely, baseball was patting themselves on the back and saying, "Oh yeah, we got this on. We hit it. This is what we need to do."
Yeah.
And after that, teams exposed them and said, "Oh, we can adapt pretty easily." I do love the nuance of catchers instead of throwing at second base, they're now throwing 2.5 feet, 3 feet in front of the base because it's like, I'll just tag them at the back of the leg now instead. Catch it there, tag it, and that's it. I do love that nuance.
I agree.
For looking at rules, the only thing that I hit on that's maybe this is something that could happen because I also want to see it on the pitching side. Tie the DH to the starting pitcher, where as soon as that starting pitcher comes out the game, well, now that DH is the pitcher spot unless you want to pinch hit, and then now you got to pick your battles of where you want to deploy these guys. Because I don't think there's anything else. I see people online talking about to your point of limiting velocity, you can't do that. Changing the mound, pushing it back. Everybody since the day of time knows what a baseball diamond looked like. You cannot push that mound back.
Right.
Raising and lowering the mound, sure, but what does that effect have on pitchers' health throughout the rest of their careers if we lower the mound? For me, let's go with these guys a little longer in games. Let's get away from the 5 and fly, the 4 and fly type of guys, and just let's have them go deep and try to not face 5 different pitchers in a game. So you still see that even with these rule changes. You got a guy coming out in the 5th, and then you have a pitcher coming in the 6th. He walks a batter, so now somebody else ends the inning. Somebody comes in the middle of the 7th, 8th, and then you get the closer in the 9th. So that's the only thing that I could think about that could help offenses is let's try to go deeper in games with the starting pitcher and see a starter 2-3 times. Yeah. You don't see that anymore. Crazy enough.
You don't. No. How big a deal do you think that is? I mean, I've seen people talk about, Ted Williams faced, or even Babe Ruth or Mantle or Gary, they faced the same, 20, 25 pitchers their whole career or over the course of a few seasons. Whereas now, you're right. You may face 5, 6 pitchers more in a game. Of course, the rule about having to face 3 batters has limited that a little bit. Used to, you could see 4 pitchers in an inning. I mean, I remember that, times of that happening. Yeah. How much do you think that does affect, hitters who have to constantly adjust to a different pitcher? Is that a valid point that people make about the difference between now and 50 years ago?
I think it's mentally it has to be huge as well because as you're trying to prepare mentally for a game of baseball, before it's okay, I'm going to face even Pedro's a bad example because Pedro's getting out regardless. But I'm going to face a starter for the first 6 innings. I got 3 bats against him. Let me mentally prepare against him. What does he throw? What does he like to see? Now when you're coming in after the 5th inning, you're like, I got to prepare against 4 different pitchers because I'm going to be on the on-deck circle. What is my coach? What's the tablet he's going to pass me over? Hey, this guy throws a slider here in this count. He throws a splitter here in this count. And it's just so vast of what you got to prepare for. It's that mental, trying to intake everything is kind of huge. and then just seeing them, feeling comfortable around the same pitchers. Like there's guys that say, regardless what this pitcher did, they always got my number. But there's pitchers, really great pitchers, that like, yeah, actually Trevor Plouffe used to rock me, like Kevin Gossman. Trevor Plouffe used to rock him, and yes, he was a great ball player. But is he a guy that everybody's rocking? Probably not. But that's awesome. That hey, he saw me too much because I was in the Central, I was against him, and it just happened to be that way. So I think it's a huge part. Now, do I think it's an end all be all? It's going to fix everything? Absolutely not. But hopefully, it helps something. If MLB is listening and wants to try that,
yeah, I'm sure they are. I think Manfred listens to this show every day, every
day.
Is it? We talked about there's not a realistic way to control velocity. Is there a realistic way to dictate, like they've done with relievers? You got to face 3 batters. Can you do something similar with starters? Hey, you got to face a minimum amount of batters, or you got to pitch a minimum amount of innings. And then how does that translate to if a guy goes out there and has one of those outings where he can't get out of the second inning and he's giving up 9 runs? Like, you have to keep him in there. Like, is there a realistic way to enforce something like that where the starters have to go a certain number of innings or batters? Is that realistic?
I think they can. I like I said, just tie it to the DH, and then it's crappy is Kyle Schwarber's a DH. You're paying that guy $30 million a year. So people are going like, hey, you're taking out my $30 million bat after the 5th inning.
Yeah,
your guy could go 6 or 7, or Kyle Schwarber wants to learn how to play some defense. Then we can get these guys back in the fold.
Fair enough.
Part of it as well. You got these guys that we're paying to be these absolute masters. We'll just stick them at DH, and people see that and say, yeah, it's a job for me. That's a role for me. When in turn, it's actually let's get a complete ball player here. Let's do it on the offensive side and on the pitching side. Let's get fully ball players. Not everywhere.
Well, and you brought up a good point earlier. We're not looking for a lineup full of Luis Arraez or Tony Gwynn's. I think the thing you used to see was a very good balance of that type of hitter at the top of the order, a cleanup hitter that was going to be the power guy. You kind of had these roles that everybody had, and now I feel like I see these lineups even with the Braves, and like you can have Ozzie Albies batting cleanup, and I'm like, Ozzie's got some power, but like, is that a traditional cleanup hitter? Like, it's just very different than it used to be. So we're not advocating for all contact. I mean, you still need that power element, but it seems like some teams, including my Braves, are built for all 9 of those guys are up there trying to hit a home run. Even, you got a guy on third base, less than 2 outs. Get that guy home. Get him home. There was a time watching baseball where if you got a guy to third base and it was less than 2 outs, you felt like it was almost a guaranteed run. Somebody was going to get that guy home. They're going to have a sac fly. They're going to hit the ball to the right side of the infield, something. And now there's a really, really good chance that guy's not getting home. Like the batter's going to strike out. He's going to ground out to short. And, there's a decent chance he's not going to score. And that just boggles my mind. Just you talked about productive outs. We've lost that.
We've lost. Like I've seen plenty of games where my Yankees have a runner on third base with no outs, and we don't score the run.
Yeah, same.
And Braves. It's a lot of baseball things that I'm never a fan of, like running on contact with less than 2 outs in third base.
Yeah,
it's not a forced play. Yeah, everybody in baseball does it, and it's like the ball was hit to the third baseman that was lined up on the bag. Why do we run home?
Look, man, I love a good squeeze play. Give me a good suicide squeeze. I'll go crazy. Like the next time will be the first time it feels like in about a century that the Braves have executed a suicide squeeze, but give me that all day long. I'll take it. One other thing I want to ask about as far as like that they've messed with that I don't think it's really helped the way they thought it would is the shift, right? So they changed the rules on the shift, and yet still I'm watching baseball and somebody will hit a rocket off the bat straight up the middle. And again, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, that's a base hit. Unless the pitcher stops it, that's a base hit because the shortstop's playing shortstop and the second base is playing second base. And now, even with the limit on the shift, you still got that guy that could technically be right behind the bag and stop that ball from getting through. And you're eliminating a lot of offense because I see a lot of hits go right up the middle to get scooped up and thrown out for an out. Should they – and I think somebody – it may have been you – somebody on our show mentioned – maybe you need to institute like a V-shaped area there. Yeah, like you can't – almost like the circle in basketball, right? You can't be inside that circle underneath the basket where, hey, look, you can't play here. You've got to keep that middle part open. Something like that is that seems like maybe the most realistic fix to at least get some more of those singles that are being denied up the middle.
Yeah. As a fan, when you watch it on TV, still to this day, like we've had this shift in place almost my entire life watching baseball. And still to this day, when I see a ball up the middle, my first reaction, oh, that's a base knock. Heck yeah, let's keep going. And then it's shortstop's playing right there. I'm like, whoa, what the heck?
What
Just took a one hop right there. How did that happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like as a fan and a viewer, you see that and you're like, that's a base hit. So like make me my eyes see it now, right? Make me see it as well. I think that's a good call to like, hey, let's have a cone behind it, just like in basketball. It's like you can't be within the circle, you can't be within this cone to start. Because I felt like we took away the shift and we're like, oh, guys like Gary Sanchez, guys like Joey Gallo might actually benefit. Neither one of those guys really benefited from it.
No,
that's crazy.
I do feel like maybe of all the things we've discussed, that's the most realistic thing to do that doesn't really mess with the fundamentals of the game, because for most of the history of baseball, that's been a base hit. It's not like that's going to change a lot. Maybe the last 15 years or so, it's not a base hit as much. But traditionally, if you rocket one up the middle, that's going to be a base hit, again, unless the pitcher stops it or it hits the pitcher. There's a pretty good chance that's a base hit. So to me, of all the things we discussed, maybe that's the easiest, most realistic thing they could do. Now, that's not going to that's not going to increase scoring by 2 runs a game or anything, but I do think it opens things up a little bit. And it incentivizes hitters not to maybe not to prioritize launch angle as much, because if you're a hitter and you're constantly hitting the ball hard up the middle and it's being denied, you're being thrown out. At some point, you're like, screw it, I'm just going to try to hit the ball out of the ballpark. This is not good to try to hit a single up the middle, even with runners on base. I might as well just try to hit it out of the ballpark because I got a better shot, right? So maybe it would open things up a little bit.
Yeah, that is a great point. Even with when the big shift wasn't outlawed, you still had Joey Gallo and Gary Sanchez trying to go yards, saying, "Yeah, it's better for me just to go try and get out of the ballpark than hit it to the left side of the field that's wide open."
Yeah,
as wild as that was back in the day.
So, if you were commissioner of baseball and you had full reign to do whatever you wanted to do, is there one change that you would make to change the game offensively, to create more offense? Is there something you could realistically implement? Like, if there was one thing you could do, what would you do?
Well, I think the cone I said the cone on our show before. Yeah. I'm really big on tying the starting pitcher to the DH.
I like that.
Just because I want to see guys go 7 innings again. Like the Mets just had Freddie Peralta, who couldn't go 4 innings, and they traded him to the Tampa Bay Rays, who now he's going to fix his changeup. He's going to go back going 6-7 innings again.
Right.
That's going to be such a great move for the Rays.
I agree.
But I want to see pitchers go deep again. I don't want to see us going through 5 relievers in a game. So I think that's what I would do. But I do love the cone. I think that's because I want to see that hit up the middle again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to just when the camera pans over and it's like, yeah, the shortstop took it as a one hopper and it's easy out at first base. The batter didn't even leave the box, and it's like, yeah, like, come on. But those are probably the 2 things that I would look at. Being starting pitcher being one, just because that's what I'm hot on now. Is that so? Would cone be yours, or what would yours be, Jay?
Yeah, I think cone would be definitely on the list, and I never really thought about your idea as far as tying that to the DH. I think that is a good idea. You would get the pushback about your $30 million DH, having to come out of the game. But look, that's one thing too, that eliminating the DH in the National League, you did eliminate some of that strategy that a National League manager had to figure out during a game. That would bring some of that back too. You have to decide, hey, is it worth pulling this pitcher and losing my DH and all those things, and take Kyle Schwarber off the field late in the game? Like, you do have to have a little more strategy there. So I'm all for that too, because I do think we've lost a lot of that with now having the DH in both leagues. It was always a little weird, honestly, if I'm being honest, having different rules for 2 different leagues.
Yeah, it's weird.
However, there was that thing of that allure of watching, 2 different types of baseball, because they were very different. The American League played a different style of baseball, whereas the National League manager had to adjust and make decisions based on that pitcher hitting. So it would probably bring some of that back as well. So I think those two ideas are the most realistic that you could implement without changing the fundamental nature of the game. And so other than that, like the velocity thing and moving the mound, and I just don't think those are realistic. I don't think you can do that and not change the game. If you want to change those fundamentals, as we mentioned earlier, you're going to have to change that at the lower levels. And I think we'll go back that way eventually, because you can't forever have guys having Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
Like it's going to swing back the other way, I feel like. But it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. And in the meantime, baseball needs to make sure that it keeps the younger base, that it's somewhat built up, I feel like, over the last few years. Different subject for a different episode, but hopefully the labor strife doesn't ruin what they've built. I do understand needing to prioritize offense, because people do tune in. Me and you might appreciate a good 2-to-1 pitchers duel, right? Like,
we do.
Best game I've ever seen in my life, unfortunately, was 1991 Game 7 of the World Series. Jack Morris and John Smoltz just back and forth, and that's classic baseball, man. And it wasn't because the hitters were bad; it was because the pitchers were that good. But nowadays, you sit a 15-year-old in front of a 1-0 pitchers duel, and they're probably bored out of their mind, right? So I understand the need to prioritize offense. I think those two things that we discussed are probably the most realistic. Other than that, you're gonna have to let it take its natural course.
Yeah.
All right. Sure. Well, yeah. Any final thoughts on offense in baseball, Lorenzo?
No, like to your point, it's going to adapt gradually. It's going to how the ebbs and flows of the game. Like you even see the Toronto Blue Jays last year, right? Those guys are trying to zig when everybody's trying to zag, which is a lot of fun. And but this year they're 17th in average, and now they're last in runs, last in OBP, last in on-base percentage, OPS. So it's like you're trying to zig when everybody's trying to zag, but you're not quite there yet. So you need to see these teams kind of do it for a few years. And to your comment of do fans like the pitching duel, I was at the Sean Newcomb almost no.
Oh, wow.
2017, 2018.
I remember, I remember that vividly. Yeah.
There were fans leaving the game at like this.
I can't. No.
Like, the Braves are up. It was like 4-0 or something. Like, we'll leave. We'll beat traffic. And I was like, this guy has a no-no going.
He got down to the last out, did he not? Did he have 2 outs in the ninth?
Like, yeah, he did. Yeah. He did, yeah.
I would have shot myself if I'd left that game and he pitched a no-hitter. I would have been like, well, first of all, I would not have left. So let's just be honest. But that just that makes me sad. That makes me very sad. Look, Martin Perez was pitching Saturday, I think. He was into the 7th with a no-hitter, and I was like, man, I wish I was at that game. Like I would love to be there right now. So, yeah, that's very heartbreaking to hear that. But, that goes back to the point of, can baseball survive the younger generation if that's what they prioritize is the hitting and the offense. There's got to be a balance there of both, and I think the rule change. I think we just solved it. Honestly, I think we just solved it with our 2 rule changes. Perfect. Just bring Tony Gwynn back. R.I.P. Rest in peace, Tony Gwynn. Just bring Gwynn back. Wade Boggs, George Brett. Contact guys at the top of the order. That's all we need. Ricky Henderson, who could do both. Power and average. Guys like that, right? Ultimate hitter. Yeah. Well, hey, look, this is good stuff. I think we've solved it all. We've definitely. I'll send this recording to Manfred immediately, and I'm sure we'll see some immediate results from that. We will definitely have to have a future episode on velocity and pitching. This was good on offense. We'll have to do the opposite. But hey, Lorenzo, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to a great discussion on Wednesday night on clearing the bases, the Dodgers and the trade deadline, and where we're at heading into, unfortunately, some labor strife. So please, folks, tune in to that and join us on Clearing the Bases every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Lorenzo, appreciate it, man. Hope you have a great night, and we'll talk tomorrow night.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
All right, buddy. Thank you.